Good morning. Wow. I'm so excited to be here. I've got to meet some amazing customers, made some friends, seen some people I've met before, Stephen from Unilever, Ali from Zurich. There's just a bunch of folks that I've really enjoyed our conversations.
I have been blown away by the people that I've met so far. We're going to be talking a lot about sort of being business-minded. I need to say the audience and the folks I meet at Talent Connect London every year are some of the most sort of global-minded in terms of business acumen. I spent some time with Andrea from VF yesterday, who kind of blew my mind with some great feedback on our product. It was nice to see some old friends like Lee from Johnson Controls. So it's a real honor to be here with you as a peer.
So, Brendan, we don't have a clicker, dude.
Let's do the clicker. We need
Where's
a clicker.
Where's the clicker? We ran out here. We're so excited to be here. It's morning. All right, so here we are.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. So the theme for our conversation today, and we want it to feel like a conversation, is about the relationship that Brendan and I both created over time between HR and TA. I joined LinkedIn about 2.5 years ago. It'll be 3 years in February. And super excited about our vision and our future, and it really depended on us aligning on this opportunity and communicating brilliantly together. And so one of the things that we were talking about and what I learned, and it was actually at the London Talent Connect last year, if you recall, we did an executive summit with some heads of TA, pretty large group, and a third of that audience actually asked me towards the end of that session, hey, Pat, how do you leave HR? I don't want to work for HR any longer. I'd like to work for the COO or the CEO. I don't get heard. I don't have the impact I want. I don't get the respect, perhaps, that I want. I'm not heard. And I was shocked. I'm like, please don't leave me. I took it so personal. I'm like, don't. The impact of TA not being part of my family of what we do together would be crippling. And so Brendan and I had this moment of conversation, said, why is this not as healthy as it could be? What can we do and share our story and help this relationship further? And so that's what we're going to talk about.
So there's 3 things we're going to take you through, and it's early, and I'm assuming a few people might have had some late nights last night. So
Safe
why
assumption.
should you even care about the next 30 minutes? Well, I'm hoping that maybe everyone could leave here taking a little bit more risk to be a better leader and hopefully make you more fulfilled as you go forward in your career as a talent professional. So there's really 3 buckets of things we're going to talk about. Grabbing a coffee, what the heck does that mean? We're going to talk a little bit about how to change the dynamic in a relationship with, could be with your CHRO, could be with HR business partner. We're going to talk about what we've found successful in sort of breaking new ground in relationships. We're going to talk about solving business problems. Sounds like the most cliche thing you've probably heard in this entire conference thus far. But we're going to share our experience on what that's meant for us and what that's meant for me in terms of evolving as a leader. And then we're going to talk about testing your hypothesis, something that I can say that it really probably wasn't until working really closely with Pat that I never really was sharing and testing my hypotheses enough. And as a result of doing that, I was really holding myself back as a leader. And a lot of it was based on my own fear, my own insecurity, and my own issues, which I have a lot of. So this is Mohawk Shroff, and that's me trying to fend off Mohawk. But the point here is I have felt beat up as a talent acquisition professional my entire career. And as I sit back and get sort of some distance from things I've done in my TA career over the years, I realize that I almost had an inferiority complex from being sort of beat up from the business, the tension that exists between hiring managers and recruiters, them thinking we don't know what the hell we're doing, us thinking that they can never make decisions. I know you've all been there. The same dynamic has existed in various forms or fashions between myself and HR over the years. These folks are my friends. It's not a super negative thing. It's not hyper-personal. But for some reason, there's this underlying tension, which is just this undertone, undercurrent that exists out there. And perhaps it's because I've been doing this for a while, and I've gotten a few more wrinkles, and I'm starting to go gray, and I'm just tired, probably from working so hard, that I've decided no more. And I saw actually a quote that this morning from one of the execs at LinkedIn who shared on his status update. It said something like, "You never know how strong you are until you have a choice. The only choice is to be strong." And I think I reached the point in my talent acquisition career where I said, I need to do something different because I don't feel as fulfilled as I know I can be. So we're going to share a little bit about how I've gone through that and what it's meant for the relationship that I have with Pat. Everyone knows who this is. The guy's incredible. Anyone want to just shout out, if you've had your coffee, what his job is? Anyone?
Anyone? What's his job? Forward?
Score goals.
I don't even know what a forward does. Score goals? All right.
So if you asked me this question a couple years ago, I'd say absolutely. His goal is to just score goals and be incredible at it. So, but today I say that's not his job. And it's part of sort of the evolution and revolution that I've had in my own mind about my job is really not my job. So Wayne Rooney's job at the end of the day is to help his team win. That's it, period. He may not score, but if he helps his team win, that is good. And we can't take claim to this axiom, if you will. There's a guy named Fred Kaufman, who's the author of a book called Conscious Business. He works at LinkedIn. He's an incredible leader. But he's really framed a lot of things for our thinking around our job not being our job. And I'm here to tell you today that I don't identify anymore as a talent acquisition professional. I don't identify as that first. And I cling to that for many, many years as a source of tremendous pride and identification. And it also but ended up putting barriers between myself and people like Pat, or myself and the business. So what the heck does that mean? Shifting the focus to be the number one thing that I need to do is find a way to help the company win, and in doing so, articulate everything I'm doing in that context. And through doing it, I have had breakthrough moments that really disarm conversations, allow you to deepen your relationship with a business leader and HR partner in a way that I've never experienced.
Thanks for handing that to me. So this slide is supposed to represent, a pictorial of either, a little bit of a shit show or an opportunity. So when I joined LinkedIn, it was 2 years out of IPO. It was a fractured HR organization. It was decentralized. We had different philosophies by leader. We had different systems, tools by region, different approach. Data was disaggregated. We couldn't find our source of truth. What I saw as an opportunity, others saw as problems. And so I love to make order out of chaos. I geek out on it. So the bigger, the hairier the problem, the more excitement I get. And so I was rallying and thinking about what is the future of LinkedIn and how can we scale LinkedIn and make it amazing and have our impact not only at LinkedIn but in the world. Right? So I saw this amazing future opportunity. I also am very, very conscious of the business model. I love to approach the problem from the business strategy and then cascade my solutions from that. And I want to measure our success carefully to make sure that I'm responsible for the success of any company I work for on the P&L side. Talent is extremely expensive. The cost of hiring, the cost of retention, the time to hire, opportunity lost if you don't hire the right person, the wrong impact, if they're not scaling. These are all things that are extremely important to every company in the world. I don't know about you, but I was raised in the domain of HR. I love the function. I've jumped in and out of HR consciously several times in my career. I've done sales for pharmaceutical. I've done operations for semiconductor. I've implemented Oracle systems around the globe and changed business processes, done large-scale change. It keeps bringing back to the P&L. Why does this matter to you? 80% on average around the world, if I were to ask you to raise your hands, you would have the OpEx cost of talent for your company. Let me phrase it a different way. You are responsible for 80% of the company's operating expenses. The success, the failure, the opportunity, the scale, you're the key to that success. Do it wisely. And so to understand what that means, I look at the opportunity I was given. Where are the systems? Where are the people? What's the quality bar? And with understanding this 80% of OpEx, and for LinkedIn, it's about 79%. If you're in a capital intense organization, it's much lower. And if you're a service organization, your OpEx on talent is in the 90s. You have a much harder job to do in terms of actual impact. In order to serve the company best and to scale, so we've grown 3x in 3 years at LinkedIn in terms of headcount and growth and reach. I worked with my team, looked at where we wanted to go, how big and broad we wanted to get, and created a 3-year journey map. This is an example of my journey map. And I said, yeah, I'm all excited, come together with me. We're gonna spend 18 months building platform. That sounds really sexy. And then my team's like, I didn't come here to build, boring stuff. And I'm like, no, to innovate, you gotta sit on top of a really strong platform. You gotta make sure they can innovate on something that scales and lasts the test of time. And so I am super excited with my team. I bring my team together. We're identifying our opportunities. My energy's super high. And lo and behold, I'm getting some pushback, some resistance in the moment. And it came from a singular voice, more and more consistently, and louder. And that voice came from Brendan. Now your turn.
So some context, LinkedIn had been growing in a very, very steep curve and tremendous amount of pressure on me as the recruiting guy to make sure we were making good hires. At the end of the day, that's what mattered. That's where I felt the heat coming from. So we're talking about grand plans here. Pat was
really
assembling her new team, and this is really what I was thinking. I'm like, are you kidding me? We're going to be layered in bureaucracy. We're going to be slowing things down. This is going to be a very traditional approach to solving people problems. I'm not on board with it. And I literally was thinking to myself, blah, blah, blah. And then I decided to open up my mouth in a meeting. So picture an HR leadership staff meeting, Pat, who's my new boss, new set of peers, and I just start shooting my mouth off with really no good solution in mind, just sort of venting and saying, I don't think this is a good idea. I get pressure from our CEO every week. We got to put butts in seats and make good hires. This is really not going to work out well for me. And then Pat literally did this. In the meeting, she shut her laptop.
Brendan.
She leaned over and stared. This is exactly what she did. And said, what do you want to do? What do you want to do, Brendan? And I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do. But I was super grateful for the fact that she called me out, because it was really a breakthrough moment for me. And I sort of spoke up and I said, well, hey, Pat, I think you're going to kind of get in my way. I need to get some things done. So it was one of those moments where, like the proverbial needle scratch across the record, my peers are sort of looking at me like, oh my gosh, this guy's coming off the rails, not good. So afterwards, Pat and I caught up one-on-one. She said, I really want to help you, one team. And I'm still like, oh my gosh. I've worked at companies, I'm talking about one team forever. It's cliche, it doesn't work, I think it's a bunch of BS, et cetera. She said, no, I really want to help you. Let's see what we can do here.
So we grabbed our first coffee.
So we grabbed a coffee, and we've been trying to hire engineers. So business problem is let's get good engineers so we can deliver a roadmap for a great product for everyone here. And my perception was, and now talking a little bit about keeping the focus on the business, was we're going to miss the roadmap if we don't hire enough engineers. And it seems like there's a specific set of senior type engineering talent that we can't pay enough for. It appears we've got a pretty bad win-loss record. Yep.
Brendan, that was your hypothesis. What was the business hypothesis?
The business hypothesis from people like Mohawk was recruiting, what have you done for me lately? You guys aren't good, basically. So that was painful.
I want to pause right here.
Pause.
Because what happens, this is a key point. Every problem comes up with a hypothesis. You have instincts, you have experience, you've seen this record before, you've seen this play out before, you jump to a conclusion. It's more efficient that way when you do that. Many times you're right, But what if you're wrong? You will chase the wrong rabbit if you're wrong. You will fix a symptom, not the root cause.
Yep.
With our high growth, I was not interested in fixing symptoms. I wanted to fix root causes. So it was really important for me to have him articulate not his own hypothesis, but both. And so in that coffee dialogue, I sat there until he was able to articulate clearly enough what Mohawk's concerns were, what he assumed the concerns were about the recruiting, the quality of the recruiter, the ability to close a rec. And on Brendan's side, it was about compensation and leveling. There was a whole bunch there. Mm-hmm. So when you go in for that coffee, don't come to argue that you're right. Understand the problem you're trying to solve and test out all your hypotheses.
Yep, well put. So this is literally the napkin from sitting, having coffee, sort of sketching out some patterns we thought were forming and trying to flesh out whether this hypothesis was valid or not. So the next thing I did was went and talked to some of the other new leaders who were my peers who thought that I was off my rocker and I wasn't on board with Pat's plan. But basically to share this hypothesis and to ask for some help. And what this is a representation of is this heat map. We looked at every single offer at every single level we had made in engineering and whether we had won or lost that candidate and where we were in the compensation range. And what we found out was some really interesting things. We found that there was a whole set of engineers, and this is just a representation of the folks that were at the very, very high range, and some of them well above our compensation range. And I think we have pretty good compensation plans for great engineers. But we're still losing.
So it wasn't a comp problem.
We were still losing these candidates. So it was interesting. Good candidate, paying them really well, losing them. And so it wasn't compensation. But the interesting thing about even having this conversation and pulling this data together was I didn't do anything. I mean, my job got probably 80% easier. And to Pat's point on wanting to be right, I have thought most of my career, really probably subconsciously, that I thought I needed to have the answers. I thought I needed to have a solution fully fleshed out. I thought I needed to be right, or my credibility would erode, or people would think I don't know what I'm talking about. 95% of the time, I actually don't know what the answer is. I'm often not right. But
Me too.
I don't share the hypothesis with enough clarity and velocity and frequency. And my feeling is that the more I do that, the better I become at it. When I don't do it, and I happen to share, speak up and have a voice around it, whether it's Pat or whether it's our CEO, one of the first questions is, how long have you known this? How long have you had this observation? And I'm getting chills right now thinking, like, if it's more than a few days, I am failing as a leader. But in the past, I would have waited. I wanted to try to put together some perfect plan to make sure I'm right. No longer, because the business needs to know what's happening. So I went to other people to just say, I don't know what the answer is. I think it's compensation. I don't know how to build a heat map. I barely passed algebra. I literally don't know how to use Excel. And I went to all these other people for help. And then this was Mohawk's feedback when we shared that heat map. A very simple idea was this heat map. Did not have the answers. Again, the answer was not there. He said, this is some of the best insight I've ever seen from the TA organization. I said, whoa, this isn't the TA organization. This is a whole group of people that helped pull this together. What we found was, in that paradigm, these senior engineers who were trying to hire were amazing candidates, but it looked like our interview process was skewing in the wrong direction. Some of these people were perhaps being misleveled. There were a couple of hiring managers who had patterns of doing this. Mohawk found this incredibly useful. After that meeting, went immediately to his team to start coaching and make sure they understand about leveling and that we have the right interview process. It then kicked off an entire body of work, which we call Project Tiger, that we're trying to figure out how to better assess and make sure we're hiring senior level engineering talent with the right approach. And it's been a huge collaborative effort. So for me, that had been a huge, huge learning. And there are many things like this. So think about the things that you know. I mean, to Pat's point, you all have observations. You probably have some observation. You go back to your team and you might vent about it. Maybe you vent over a coffee with your friends about it. Share that observation. And another really, really quick example on this is I'm seeing Wade over here. There was a time last year where hiring plans changed. Everyone's been there, right? double, triple the plan. This was like a 3x increase in a particular quarter. Normally, what I would have done is said, we're going to burn out our recruiters. We can't get enough recruiters in time. So he said, instead, you know what? We're never going to say no. But we're going to give you some options on what to do. And I don't have the answers to do all this analysis. So we went out and talked to the biz operations team and the sales operations team and said, here's a scoop. We think that this is going to be really challenging for your business. Can you help us figure out whether this is going to be a drag for this quarter on revenue, as an example? So the sales op leader took this hypothesis, said, let me prove whether, what really may happen here. He came back and said, as you guys were thinking, the number of hours it would take to interview all the people that are attached to this new increased hiring target would take so many people off the front lines from selling that it will be problematic for the business. So, okay, well, let's come up with a few choices on what we can do. We don't want to say no. So Wade's number one ask is this big increase in hiring. Let's show him what's going to happen there in terms of hours and what the upside and the downside of doing it is. Maybe a second choice and a third choice. So in doing that, again, my job became like 80% easier. You rewind the clock 3 years ago, I would have been running through walls, complaining about the whole thing, not being satisfied. My morale would have taken a tank. So the point is just speaking up and saying, I don't have the answers, but I think we need to analyze this for the business has changed the outcomes in many of these situations.
So here's what's happening. More and more people are speaking up. So watching Brendan and the impact Brendan's having with the line leaders has given courage to so many other centers of excellence to have the same preliminary conversation, leveraging both instinct and data. There is a sense of, I don't know enough, maybe I'll wait. That's actually can be harmful because you are the subject matter experts. I can't tell you how many times in exec recruiting that I've had an exec recruiter come up to me, literally, this is an example, say, something doesn't feel right in this offer. This is the signal this candidate is giving me. He's got great X, Y, and Z, knows A, B, C, but something about the compensation, something about what they're presenting doesn't feel right. I scratched on that, I listened, and they were right, and we never went forward with an offer. We avoided a major mistake because I slowed down long enough to listen. They spoke up, and I'm so thankful they did, because that leader would have been a big impact on LinkedIn. So what we're asking you guys to do is grab coffee. There's got to be someone in your business today, a line leader, a partner, your CHRO, your COO, your CEO, that you have been thinking about at least twice of a problem that you're trying to noodle on, that if you were able to speak up and share your instincts, you might solve a real problem. If you think of that person twice, my ask is that you text them, you email them today, and say, can I have coffee with you? Take that first step. The return on that conversation is incredible for you personally and professionally, as well as your company. Remember, your job's not your job. Your job is to help your company win. This is the major step in that execution. TA. Now, why is TA so important to me as CHRO? They are the barometer of what's happening in the market. So many things that I do as a leader is setting framework and guidance for the organization. I work with Brendan and my team in terms of compensation structure, how we're going to position pay in the market, how we do talent management, succession planning, on and on and on I go, right? There's a whole bunch there to manage that P&L element. What Brendan does is let me know way early at any point in time if we have a problem in a specific skill set, with a leader, with compensation. The market is dynamic. It doesn't stay stable for a year until I do the next rev of something, or 18 months or 2 years. It's dynamic. And I would be less of a leader, less of a partner to Brendan if I wasn't listening so carefully. And so find your voice, speak up, bring some data, but have the courage to share your instinct as well, because you've got it. Trust it.
I'm going to just on that note, I'm going to give you a quick replay of a call that I made to Pat. I think it was last year. So
now I'm nervous.
So
script.
So to give you an idea. But just as an example, so Pat had just started, and there's exec talent review that Pat's in. and recruiting was not in the room with the executive team during exec talent review. Some people may be in that, and if you are, that's fantastic, because obviously I think we all need to be in that room. And with the framework of I want to help the company win, not about me, I want to help the company win, I felt like there's a lot of knowledge that we have about the market. We all have this insight, but it was something as simple as like in the moment, the second I thought like I really want to help the company win, and that may sound goofy to people to use that framework, but it allows me to make it so not about me, but about the company. Just called up Pat and said, Pat, do you have a quick minute? I think I texted you and said, hey, I need to talk, and it's one of those things like, whoop, you need to talk.
I'm like, all right, he's texting.
But just called and said, you know what, I think TA really needs to be in the conversation with the exec around exec talent review and talking about senior level talent strategy, because we have a lot of observations about the market that we need to share. It was literally a sentence I put to, and Pat was immediately like, you know what, absolutely, we haven't even talked about that, it absolutely should happen. And the reason I share about that, you can absolutely get coffee. We're to the point now where anything that comes up, and there was another one that came up when I was on vacation a couple months ago, I need to call Pat and share this with her. Because again, I know that if I'm not sharing, we're now at the point, if I'm not sharing an observation with her, or a hypothesis, her question is going to be, how long have you had this observation? And now I want it to be real time. So it's become kind of part of the fabric of how we interact. But in the past, for me, honestly, it was some kind of embedded fear that I needed the answer, I didn't know what to say. But I'm telling you, based on my experience, it's been the most liberating thing. Shining a light even on things that are in TA where there may be problems. The cavalry does come. The people do come to support. People don't always, business leaders may not be thinking about the things you're thinking about all the time. So with folks like Mohawk, his other big comments are, you guys tell me that I have problems I had no idea I have. He's worried about building amazing products for you. He's not constantly thinking about this talent and recruiting stuff every single day, every single moment like we are. So my job is not my job. My job is to help him understand what might be happening from a talent perspective at any given time. So sorry to interrupt, but I felt compelled to share that.
That's so true. And just a tip. This is like my third gig as a CHRO, and I've partnered with TA in so many times in my life, and I've actually done TA as part of my rotation. The thing that was brilliant for Brendan, and the thing that I would coach all of you to do, is approach the world with curiosity and humility. The world changes. What you thought you knew 2-3 years ago may not be the same set of circumstances that are happening today. And so when Brendan finally challenged me and I understood what he was thinking and his intuition, he did educate me. He did show me some bright dots that I didn't connect. And together we became more powerful. Together we had more insight and more instinct to put to the problem, and it became a more effective outcome. We're no longer chasing rabbits, as I like to call it. We're solving business problems. So the next things that are evolving for our conversation is this impact on our cultures. Culture sets LinkedIn apart. How do you make sure that brand, that purpose shows up in all things that we do, from attract to retain to retire, right? How do we do this really, really well? Listening to the recruiters and the exchange and what brings a candidate in. 55% of the millennials ask about purpose before they ever ask about compensation anymore. I got to make sure that message is freaking tight. The second thing that we started exploring early on is the internal mobility and talking to the product team and talking to you guys about your pain. It's the same pain that we have. Why in the hell are we not addressing it? Brendan, we thought about it twice. Let's take this to the table. And you know what? The product team listened. We're no longer victims. Now we're going on the champagne, conversation about diversity, and we're like, no, let's change that conversation about inclusion. Let's figure out a way to change how talent looks at the world, how you have those conversations, how you have acts of inclusion, and get a better diverse outcome. Because then you win as a business. And so your job isn't your job. Your job is to win. Help the team win. And we're still on our journey. We still don't always align. We still have a great debate, but I can debate about this, not about us. And I love that. I love being able to pick up the phone and go, Brendan, dude, what do you think about this? How do I help think about that? And Brendan's like, P-dubs, I think we have a problem over here. This is a hot spot. And I go, thank you. And I do thank you. So let's wrap it up, Brendan.
Okay. So another sort of interesting thing about this that Pat and I were talking about on the way here was now with the new products being released, as an example, all the data that's out there. I mean, LinkedIn, I am here also on behalf of you as a peer to make sure that we build the best products so you can be unleashed as a business leader and have all these insights about the market and talent, supply and demand at your fingertips. We've always been talking about let's have a seat at the table. Be a talent advisor. I mean, how long has everyone been talking about that? It's like, good God, can we please stop talking about that? Now that these tools are there, this is our call to leadership to help our companies win. So again, in recapping what we talked about, not only should we be doing this, but the acceleration with which we need to do it it's more urgent than ever, given that all this data is out there and we can help our companies win in new ways. So one, connect over coffee. My feeling is like, never, ever debate things over email, ever.
Ever.
It's weak. It's a victim mentality. It's a safe place to hide behind. Don't do it. And I also think don't even do it in a conference room. Try not to do it in an office. Go outside, have a coffee, go for a walk, whatever it may be. Change the dynamic, and then frame up the conversation, letting whoever it is that you're speaking with know, look, I really want to help the company win. It may sound goofy to you, but it disarms everything. I want to talk to you because I care deeply about helping the company win, and I really want to help solve a particular business problem. Do you have a minute so we can talk about that? Can we go for a walk? Changes the dynamic completely. So keep the focus on winning in the business problem. And then third, share your hypothesis. In my experience, like I said, my job has become 80% easier letting go of the fact that I thought I needed to be right and have the answer and just starting sharing my hypothesis. Support, advocacy, comes from places you had never imagined because it becomes so focused on the business and not about people or personal. So then share your hypothesis. And I say through that, all this sort of actualization we want to have as business leaders in the talent acquisition function will happen. We're now at that point. And I hope that this time next year, someone's up here continuing this conversation, talking about how you've become that business leader that you always imagined and dreamed of. So with that, thank you very much.
Thank you.